Hey, was I in a cult? Part 10. So, in the last episode, I talked about how I finally made this decision that I was going to go ahead and commit myself to attending this church and that I was going to stop partying and then I was just going to live for God. Okay? So, I just remember that the first thing that happened was a conversation that I had with my best friend Lena, and we talked about how we wanted our lives to change, and she was kind of like on board too, and she was like, I'm down, let's go. And so she decided that she would go to church with me. And so I remember that the first thing I did was get a list of the schedule of what was going on at church, and to my surprise there was something going on every single day. So I had many options to choose from. And I think that I am the type of person that is like, kind of, once I commit to something, I usually go all in and I hyper focus, and that's just in my nature to do that. So I was just like, I wanted to go to everything because I felt like it would help me to, I guess, immerse myself so that I would not have the temptations to go back to partying and doing the things that I was doing before. So I guess you could say I had sort of an addictive personality. And I get bored easily. It just happens. I mean, that's just me. So I had to have some kind of excitement, something going on all the time, or else I would probably get in trouble. So I just literally went to church almost every day. I mean, at one point in time, I think my entire schedule was filled of church activities throughout the week. I think at one point in time I was doing follow-up on Monday, Bible study on Tuesday, youth ministry on Wednesday. Thursday was like a young adult thing, and then Friday was prayer night, and then Saturday was evangelism, and Sunday was church in the morning at 10 o'clock and at night at 6. So my schedule was quite full. The main thing I remember when I first started going to church is that I would pick up my friend Lena and we would go to church together every Wednesday. And I remember that her parents were Catholic, and so they kind of had a problem with it. Like, they started to give her a hard time about going to church. And I don't know if she was kind of lying about it and just saying that she was going out with me, and then they kind of picked up on she was going out with me every Wednesday, and then they started giving her a hard time. And I guess she started wanting to go to church more, and they weren't letting her go on Sundays for whatever reason. And then at one point in time, they were just giving her such a hard time that, like, they just told her no, that she couldn't go anymore. And actually, I think what it was is that because on Wednesday nights the service would end at 10 o'clock, and she wouldn't get home till like 10:30 or 11 after we would finally get home. Sometimes it'd be like 11 o'clock, and she had to go to school in the morning, and she was probably having a hard time getting up. And her parents wanted her in bed earlier, and I think it was interrupting their sleep as well, because they also, I think they had to work, and so they were going to bed around 10. So it was just one of those things where it was a weeknight, and her mom started to be like, if you're not home by 9 o'clock, and we're like, well, the service doesn't even end until 10. And then she's like, I don't care. If you can't get home by 9, then that's it. You can't go anymore. And we tried that for a while. We would end up leaving service early. And I remember I would actually get in trouble. This is one of the first red flags. I would get in trouble for leaving early. And I'd try to explain to people that I had to leave early, but what they would do is sometimes they would get to the altar call, and then they would tell the ushers to close the door and not let anybody leave. Like, they literally said that. And there's a bunch of youth in this group. I mean, I happen to be 18. My friend Lena was like 17 still, and still in high school. And then a lot of these kids were like 13, 14, 15. But honestly, a lot of them were like pastors' kids, or someone that was in ministry who understood, and they didn't mind that their kids were out that late. But for us, it was just kind of like, I remember I would start to leave and they would be closing the doors, and I'd be like, we have to go because I have to get my friend home by a certain time. And they're like, we're not allowed to let you leave. And I'm like, what do you mean you're not allowed to let me leave? And they're like, no, we can't open the door for you. And I'd be like, we need to go. And then they're like, you can just wait until the altar call is done. And I'm like, my friend's going to get in trouble. She's not going to be able to come back to church. And I remember that they were so adamant about not letting us leave when we wanted to leave. There were times where I had to go to the bathroom really bad, and they were like, no, you have to wait. You can't leave right now. They would absolutely not let anyone leave during the altar call, which is the time when they're like asking everyone, I understand, like they want people to be there for the end of the service and the end of the message, and they don't want people leaving during that, but they needed to be a little bit more like, it's kind of like being held against your will. They were holding these youth against their will. Like there were people that were wanting to leave, and they were like holding the doors. The ushers would hold the doors and not let you go. And I remember one time I was so mad and I had to go to the bathroom or something. And I remember telling them, to get out of my way, I was going. And they were like trying to still convince me, and they put their arm out to block me. And I pushed past them. It was like those kind of doors, like an emergency door. And I just like busted the door open and left. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe you guys are telling people they can't leave the church when they want to leave the church. It's ridiculous. Red flag. Very big red flag. It was so bad that, I remember I had to bring it up to leadership, and I had to say something, and I was just like, look, my friend needs to get home by a certain time. Do you understand that some of these kids are under 18, they're under their parents' restrictions, and a lot of people don't want their kids to come to church because they get out so late, and then you're not letting them leave when they're supposed to leave. Like, if I don't get my friend home by 9 or 9:30 at the latest, she's not going to be allowed to come anymore. And I know so many youth, not just her, but there were other youth that I picked up to go to church, and their parents were also getting mad that they weren't letting them out until like 9 or 10 at night. And sometimes it would just go longer than normal, and it's like they needed to realize that these are minors. And on top of that, if you can't be holding doors closed so that people can't leave when they want to leave, that's called kidnapping. And also, on that note of being held against your will, I can't even imagine what people in our women's homes went through, because those women were not allowed to leave service during the service unless it was like I don't know if it was an absolute must, but regardless, you know what? These women weren't allowed to go to the bathroom by themselves. If one woman went to the bathroom, they had to always go everywhere in twos. They couldn't go to do anything alone. It's like they couldn't just be like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. So then someone else had to miss on part of the message because, the leader of the home or whatever would instruct someone else that they need to go with this person to the bathroom. But technically, they were basically not allowed to go to the bathroom during service, during altar call, or at all for that matter, unless it was like an absolute emergency. Like if you're ready to go poop in your pants, is the only time that you're able to leave that church to go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, anything. And we weren't allowed to have water inside. We weren't allowed to drink inside of that church. It wasn't like you could just be like, well, let me just whip out my water bottle. No. But if someone needed a drink of water, they were told they had to wait until after service. Grown adults were told they had to wait until the service was over. What? When I look at this now, it just makes me so mad. And I'm just like, I can't believe that they were doing this. This is illegal, to be honest. And they got away with so much. And I think they've probably changed things. I don't think it's the same anymore. But still, that's what we went.